Okay, and we're COMP123, and this is week 5, lesson 5, part 4, and we've just mostly finished our quiz and the practical piece. And I'm just guessing, you guys, most of you should have found this thing fairly easy and straightforward. This is how the exams are going to be. They're straightforward. They're not going to be, I'm not going to try and trick you, right? Stuff we've studied in class, even to a lesser degree, are going to be on the test. You should basically know how to make a class. If you can't do a class, when we're doing stuff, then you don't understand the basics of what we're doing. And if you don't understand, like I said here in classes, please see me, right? In any piece, make an appointment, or just come down to 8:30. I don't fly away. I might have gone for a coffee, all right? That's the worst case scenario. And wait for me, all right? Because I'm going to be back. Or I'm going to see, I might be in the coordinator's office, Ilya, or talking to somebody. I'm there. I don't leave on Wednesdays between 12:30 and 6:30 typically. There might be occasions where I skip out, but the worst case scenario, send me a little email saying, hey, do you mind if I see you today? Or can we book some time tomorrow if it was on a Tuesday? And specify a time, and I'll make sure I'm there so that you don't have to try and find me. Okay, so again, I'm available 12:30 to 6:30. There are other times I'm available as well. For example, I'm just going to post my times here. Mondays, I am available in the mornings if you need to make an appointment with me between, let's say, 8:30 and about 12:30. I can make time for you in the morning on Mondays just to be more flexible. I can also see you guys on Tuesdays after about 2:30. And there is a space between classes. Christina pointed it out to me that I showed up at the wrong time one time, right? Between 10:30 for now until the second half of the semester, between 10:30 and 12:30 on Tuesdays. So there are different times. Send me a note. Worst case scenario, I will say I'm available, not available. Can we switch another time? Or give me a set of times. Like if you say, hey, I need to meet with you. Do you have a space between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock as an example, or whatever. And then I'll say, yeah, I got half an hour, or I got an hour. Or how much time do you need? Specify the time. You say, I need about an hour with you, or half an hour with you between, do you have a space between this time and this time? And if I do, I'll say, yes, I do, and we'll try and arrange something, okay? So don't be strangers. If you have problems, don't hide, all right? This isn't the thing to do with me, right? If you hide and I never see you, and we haven't worked together, I can't help you, right? You can always go, if you don't like working with me because you feel intimidated or you don't want to do it for whatever reason, there are tutors, peer tutors you can go and find, all right? So we do have peer tutoring. And you can also work with your colleagues if you have a question. Don't be a stranger. Don't be at work on your own. This isn't the thing to do, because if you're confused about something, it won't become clear if you just sit in a box somewhere and try and figure it out sometimes. So you have to talk to people. And sometimes it takes us to kind of explain things over and over again for everyone to get it. Not everyone can understand it the first time. And that's why I have the videos, right? The videos should help you somewhat, but sometimes you need even those to be clarified, and that's fine. Okay, I'm willing to do that with you as much as I can. Yes?
You said those times are available at 8 to 2:30?
8 to 2:30, that's my spot. We'll meet there, and if we have to book a place, if there's enough of you who try and book, again, the other thing is if you guys want to organize a little tutorial room, if you guys find a slot, a space somewhere up here, as an example, an hour that there's no class, which good luck, right? It's pretty booked. Then I can organize something where I can come together with you guys, and then we'll meet. Even if it's after, let's say, after 4 o'clock. Sometimes things slow down after 4 o'clock in some of these classrooms. Sometimes we can kind of meet and stuff and try and, even if it's the other days. The one day that I'm not available is Thursdays. I won't be here. I'm up in Barrie on Thursdays, right? So if you try to meet me on Thursdays, not going to happen. I'm in another planet on Thursdays. Put it that way, right? If you try and call me on Thursdays, you probably won't get me, right? I'm working in another city, right? Fridays I am available. I can meet. I can make a special time, especially in the second half of the semester. There is a slot between 10:30 and 12:30 that I'm teaching on the Fridays in the second half, but I will make myself available on Fridays at certain points, as long as you make an appointment ahead of time. I don't have a standing appointment on Fridays because I'm not always here, right? But Wednesdays would be the best day if you have space. Okay, so that's my availability. I just want to talk to you about that again, only because I don't want you guys to to feel that there's nowhere to go to get help if you need help. Okay, so yesterday we were talking about this problem. We have a problem, right? We have to write this, pick, powers, 3 powers, and make them unique. And I kind of showed you one way of doing it. I want to talk about looping a little bit too, because some of you, I don't want to reteach everything that was done in programming 1. I can't do that, right? However, what I can do is I can talk about some basics. Okay, let's go back to this, and I've got this up on GitHub, right? So I looked at it. It should say COMP123 lesson 5 for you guys to remind you, right, of what it is. And we were doing this this array example with different makes of cars, Honda, BMW, blah blah, right? But again, it's an analogy for what you need to do for assignment number 2, right? And we came up. I kind of came up with this algorithm, right? That's what it's called. When I say algorithm, don't glaze, don't run away, all right? It's not a bad word. It's not a dirty word, algorithm, right? It means a set of instructions, right? A little, some code that does something, right? And this is what the code is. I used a while loop to skip through the array, right? That's what I've done here, right? And I'm using the length property of the array, the length method, because an array is a complex data type. Right? It's not a simple data type like integer or decimal or float, right? But even with that, if I said in my index is 0, right? If I try and use index, which is a very simple, data type, if I say index and I go dot, I still have these other things that index can do. For example, I can go index to string, right? If I wanted to do that, right? Because every object, right? Everything that's in C# and in a lot of more advanced languages is an object, even simple integers. They still have methods, right? Some complex objects, like the array object, right, have more or different types of methods than just a regular integer, right? So the integer, I'm just going to make some space here so we can think about index for a second. Here's index. There's nothing. You don't see anything else, just index, right? A lot of space. And again, index has, if I just go index dot, it has all this extra stuff. We're talking about inheritance, but where does this extra stuff come from? Anybody? Where does all this stuff come from, this extra stuff? Where? The default. There's no default. Huh? The which one? System class. Remember that every class, there's a super class to every class. Actually, I quizzed you guys on this today. What's the class called? It's called object, right? You guys didn't get that? Object. Object is the superclass for all classes, right? So the object class is something that every class and every object inherits, right? It's part of our background. Like that's like the indirectly or directly we inherit from the object class. And that's why they have all these extra methods here. Compare to, equals, blah, blah, blah. All this extra stuff is part of the object class that every other object inherits. Like, for example, index. Even though index is just, in this case, an integer variable, right? It's still an object. We're using the integer class, right? If you think about it from a high level, right? This struct is really what it is. Because you guys haven't done structs yet, I'm guessing. Yes? No? You guys should not have done structs yet. It's a different type of data type or data structure. But anyways, it considers, if I hover over it, it says struct system.int32. I'm hovering over the data type, right? And it says represents a 32-bit signed integer, right? From a data type perspective, we can make our own integer, right? Our own data type when we create our own classes. In effect, that's what we're doing. We're making our own data type. When we're making our superhero class or our hero class or our car class, we make our own data type, right? So if that's the case, and if we're inheriting from the object class, then every class has methods, a bunch of methods that are available to it. And here's all the methods that are available just to this integer index. But we're making an array, and I'm just going to take away this white space now again, because we don't need all this, right? We're making an array, and the array has some and in this particular case, there's a couple of arrays we're using. One of them is called original array, and the other one is called new array. And both of these arrays are complex data types. They're not simple data types like integer, float, double. They're not like those things, right? They have additional methods that are available to them. For example, new array, if I just type new array, which is an array that I've declared up here with this, I use the string data type, which is a complex data type. Take a look. When I hover over string, it doesn't say struct, it says class. When it says class, right, as an example, it says represents text as a series of Unicode characters, but it's a class. See, my hovering does that. I do the same thing over here, it says the same thing, right? So when I declare a string, there's two ways to declare a string. I can use an initializer like this. This is a string initializer. That's what it's called, right? This is just a refresher from back in the programming one, right? String initializer. This is also called, like I called it yesterday, literal notation, right? Where we kind of take curly braces and we initialize the string, original array, with items here of a fixed length. So strings in C#, just to remind you, I said they were immutable yesterday. I think the better word is fixed length. You can't change the number of elements inside of a string once you've set it. Okay, so that's the key for strings. All right, so you can't change the number of elements. There are always going to be 5 elements in this string, because once I've set it, you can't change them. We haven't gone on to lists, which we will. We'll go on to lists later on. More of a complex data type, part of the collections, different kind of collections that exist in C#. That's a list, right? But we don't need that structure. What we want to try and figure out is how do I use arrays to do what I'm going to do without the need of a complex data type like a collection like lists. If you came up with it on your own and you used the list, right, for assignment number 2, I wouldn't complain. I wouldn't tell you you can't do it, right? If you studied it on your own and figured out how to use it, all the power, right? However, you don't need it, all right? You can do everything just like I did here with my with this algorithm here in this while loop where it says assign cells from one array to another. I've just created a little algorithm. It's not very efficient at this point, right? But it's okay, it does the job. Okay, but if you notice, I use the .length method of the new array variable that I created, right? So let's just give some space here to new array. So all we see is this for a second. Okay, so I've got new array, and I want to see what methods new array has. Well, this is kind of like array 101, right? Let's take a look. If I press dot, I get aggregate, all, any, as enumerable, as parallel. There's a bunch of other things it does for your basic arrays. I can cast it, right? I can clone it. Clone, what does that do? If I use clone and I hover over it, it says creates a shallow copy of the system.array, right? So let's use clone, new array.clone, right? If I open a bracket, it says all I need to do is creates a shallow copy, right? So if I know that it does that, can it somehow return the value of new array into another array if I clone it? Okay, let's see if it works. What does it do? I don't even know what this does, let's assume. And I'm going to create a new variable called myArray, right? Can I do this with clone? And if I can I output the value? Console.writeLine. And inside there I'm going to say myArray. I'm going to create a new array, right? And then this one I'm using my concatenation, right? And new array, myArray. Okay, so I'm going to just concatenate this time instead of interpolate. What's the difference between a concatenation and string interpolation? Two different words, right? You need to know these terms, by the way. Concatenation means I take two strings and put them together, like smash them together, right? Interpolation means this is concatenation. When I use the plus operator, that's concatenation. I take these two strings and I put them together. There's a string here called a string literal, which is my array. It's a string that I'm going to output to WriteLine. And there's a second string over here that's contained, hopefully, my array is contained. not the string, right? My array should give me what type of object it is. That's why I'm looking to print to console.writeLine, right? The type of object. And I'm concatenating this array out with my array. That's one way of doing it. I can also write it like this, like I've already done with you a couple times, right? Instead of my array like this, string interpolation is when you do this, right? When I do this, I'm actually saying, give me the first element, the 0th element that's in my list, and now when I do this, I need to use the comma, right? This is the syntax. Both ways will output whatever the value is of my array to the console. This is string interpolation. That's what it's called. And this string concatenation, right? Complex words to mean take two strings, smash them together, and make them one string, right? And interpolation means take whatever this stand in, or this almost like I'm kind of using a placeholder, right? Take this placeholder and replace it by the value that's coming from my array. All right? Both work the same way. Let's use string concatenation for this example, and then let's see how it's going to mess up my stuff. All right, so I'm going to run it. Does it work? Okay, it says my array. This is what prints out before I do my original list and everything else. My array is equal to system.string. Okay, so it's a string type of array. We know that we've got that. And I didn't, hey, when I used my array, I didn't say it's a new array. I didn't do that, right? I did a copy of this new array, right? Let's print out, instead of having my array, let's look at the first element of my array, right? Which is, I'm just using a clone of, if I can do that. And look, it says, hold on, error, cannot apply indexing with close brackets to an expression of type object. Why? Because my array is an object. It's a pointer. That's what it is of my clone right now. I didn't declare it as an array type. Right? See, I said my array. I used the var keyword. What if I did this? Because var comes from a different, it's part of the language C#, but it's an old throwback, right? Let's classify it as a string array. What if I did this? String array, my array, right, is equal to this new array clone. Well, it starts complaining. It says, cannot implicitly convert type object to string, right? I can't implicitly convert it. I can't, because right now my string is of type object, right? And I'm trying, this is an object, and can I cast? That's what it's asking me to do. My array, and here's, I'm cloning my new array. I can't do that, it's basically saying. So the clone feature doesn't allow me to do that. Maybe I have to do one of these, right? Is equal to new string array, right? And I can't just do this with C#. I have to specify a string length. Well, I could specify in here the length of the string that I specified up here for my, because I'm doing a copy for my, because I'm copying new array. All right, my new array is worth 3. Let me do this original array. Bear with me, guys. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So my new string, I can't do this just like this. It's blank. I have to assign it a length because I'm using the new keyword. This is constructor notation, right? 2 notations. I'll show you again. This, literal notation, or a string initializer. Sorry, array initializer is what it's called. Okay, it's an array initializer, this method here, right? The other method, this one, right, is called constructor notation. There's 2 ways of kind of declaring an array. This way and this way, okay? Okay, cool. So I'm going to use constructor notation with a new keyword, but instead of giving it a length, a number here, I'm going to plop in here, I'm going to make it so that I take the original array, take its length, because it has a length method, and plop it in here. So I'm going to make it the same length. So original array dot length. What have I done here? I'm basically saying that I'm using the length method of the original array, which is built in to all arrays, right? Which returns a number, an integer. That's what it does. If I hover over what length does, it says an integer array length gets a 32-bit integer that represents the total number of elements in all the dimensions of the system.array. That's all it does. So it returns an integer. So now my array, which I've just made down here, is going to be the same length as my original array, this my array object down here. I can do that. I can take the value of another object like my original array and get a length from it, right? You guys all following me? Okay, now when I do this original array.clone, I want to assign this to my array. Can I do it now that I've declared it as an array? Let's try it. So I go my array is equal to original array. Well, no, I can't, because what does it say? It says cannot implicitly convert the type object, which is this, type string. Even though I'm doing a shallow copy, I'm actually making a copy or a reference to the object itself, right? So clone is not what I need to use. This is how we test. We say, hey, can I use this thing? Can I clone? Can I copy from one array to the other? Clone won't do it, not this way. Right? I can't just assign it this way. I can't use an assignment operator for this, right? Okay, let's try something else with my original array. Dot, let's see what else we can do. We did length already. My array, I've already got a length. I've got a long count, a long length, a maximum, minimum, of type, order by, order by. I got a rank, reverse, select, different things, set value, right? A sum, a bunch of little things here that are included. I can cast it to list, to array, all this other stuff here that's included, or to string. And I can also do a union and a where and a zip. Lots of little things. I'll tell you right now though that none of these things here, right, are going to help me do assignment number 2. If you tried to use any of these things like get value, group, blah, any of these things in here, right, it wouldn't help you. What about initialize? That's interesting. What about if I go array.initialize, and if I open up a bracket, it says initializes every element of the value type system.array by calling the default constructor of the value type. So if I did this, what would you expect? Right? Actually, this doesn't work, right? Because I can't assign this to this, right? That's not the reason for it. If I call the initialize method of the original array, what am I doing? What am I assigning to each element? Come on, guys. So I've got my original array. I'm just going to kill this. I don't need this anymore, right? And I don't need this, so I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm just doing this. What do I do when I do this to an array? Initialize. It says, I'll read it again. Initialize every element of the value type system.array by calling the default constructor of the value type. What's the default constructor of every array? Do you guys know? It's the new. It does this. Constructor notation, right? If I do this, what are my array elements, new array, what are they defaulted to? Null. They're defaulted to the null value because they're strings. If they were integers, if it was an integer type array, they would be defaulted to 0, right? That's what they do. So this is a quick way. This method is kind of cool. It initializes the array back to its original defaults, which is nothing, right? Sometimes we need to use this initialize method because C# might complain that the values of the array have not been initialized. But remember, this doesn't work for every array, and this is good for a string type of array, right? It may not work the same for an integer. Okay, so arrays have methods. This is where we're going with this, right? And all I've done, I'm just going to pass, let's go back to my little algorithm. I'm going to say that dirty word again, algorithm, right? For you guys have heard before, hopefully, right? This is my algorithm, this while loop, right? And I'm saying get the array length, right? That's what this new array length is. And then I want to test, every time I go into this while loop here, I'm testing to see if the index, which starts at 0, is less than the length of my array, my new array. Well, guess what? My new array's length is 3. So this condition is going to be true for the first time around. That's what this is going to do. It's going to start at 0, And then what's going to happen is it's going to test. The test is passed for the first one. I'm going to generate my random member. Well, how did I get that? And let's change generate random member to generate random element, just so we keep within the context of what we're talking about. I'm going to just refactor. I'm going to right click. And the refactoring menu comes when I right click. It's context sensitive. I'm going to go refactor, rename, right? And I'm going to rename this thing, instead of random member, I don't like member. Member might be even, a bad word in some ways, right? Element, random element, and press OK. Right, and it's going to show me a preview of all the places it's going to change generate random member in my program. I'm going to click apply. That's changed to generate random element, right? I'm also going to change my random member variable, refactor that, and change that to random element, right? So you guys should know how to refactor by now. And press apply there as well. So now it's called random element. Random element makes more sense. So I'm getting a random element that I'm going to inject into my array. That's what I'm doing, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say I'm going to do another test. So first I generate this random, right? So I'll say generate random element, a number. That's what it's going to be, random number, right? From 0. And by the way, I did a fixed number here, right? What is this doing? Is this good to do? Random.next 5. Why would I not want to do this method this way? Anyone? Can anyone think of why not? Yes. What if I added more elements tomorrow? Would my generate random element work? Right? It would be bad, right? Okay. But this is something that I got to think about, because my random is passed into this random number generator. By the way, this, if you notice, this RND, let's go way back up to the top again, which is here. I've declared it here. What is it when I use a random number generator? It's an object, right? But the object is actually my random number seed. That's what it is. It's a pseudo-random number seed that's based off of the time. So if I hover over random, it says, represents a pseudo-random number generator, a device that produces a sequence of numbers that meets certain statistical requirements for randomness. But what it really does, the random number seed is based on the system time. So if I generate it once up here, this is the right way to do it. If I take this and put it down here, so every time I call my generate random element method, I call that again, I'm going to get the same number over and over again, because it's so close to the time. The computer's going to run this thing so quickly that the time is going to be very close to what it was, the same minute, almost the same second, because it can run a number of times per second, right? So don't initialize your random number seed within a method like this that runs over and over again. Do it once at the top, and that'll solve your it's the same number kind of issue, right? So this is bad. This random next is a bad thing, right? Because I'm initializing my random next, the next random number I'm getting, I'm initializing this with a fixed literal 5, right? Which means it's not very flexible, my method, this generate random element method. It only bases it off, the, just a static variable, which is not good, right? What I want to do is I want to access the length, and we're not using a class here. We're only using our program. I want to get the access of the original array, the length of the original array. Can I access the original array within my method over here? Do I have access to it? Let's see. So if I go, I'm going to start typing original. Hey, well, how come it's not there? Here's my original array. I don't have access to it. How come? Well, because what's the default? The default, and I asked you this on the test, the little quiz. What's a default access modifier for all variables?
Private.
Private, which means that my string is a private type, right? I can't make this public, because if I do this and I say public, well, I can't. It's going to complain because my class is static. Once I have a static class, I can't do this. How about if I made this static? Can I make this static? like this. Would that work? Static string? I can't do that either because I can't put a access modifier inside this static method main. I can't do it, right? So how else can I pass the length of my array into my random number generator? How else can I do that? Because my random number generator is going to be called here, right? I only pass one parameter to it right now. It's only the random number seed that I'm passing in there. So I can generate my random number. I need to pass something else in there. What else should I pass? Come on, guys. The what? Not the maximum. Well, I don't want to pass a literal. I want to pass a number that's going to be based off of the length of my original array. What do I pass in there? Original array length. I love you. That's the way it's going to be. So I got to pass it somewhere. Now it could be after the random or before the random, but I got to pass it in there in order for me to have so that my method that I'm creating, this function that's outside of my class, right? I can call it this utility method over and over again with different size of array, right? Otherwise, I'm going to have a problem. I'm not going to be able to access all members of the original array. Okay, that's cool. So let's do that. So let's say it's got to be at least the length, original array dot length is what I want to pass in there, right? Now, I don't have a parameter call for this. My method signature for generate random element, right, doesn't include that right now. If I go back down here, if you notice, my generate random element method doesn't have that. I have to actually change my signature. So here we go. So I'm going to say it's got to be an integer, right? And it's going to be of type we'll call it max. So my integer max, right, is what I'm taking in because what I'm looking at is the maximum value of my my array. Of my random number generator, right? And I want to put this here. I want to pass that in here so that way it's not a fixed number anymore. I'm also going to change this random car. I'm going to change this to refactor this and rename this to number, right? Because number doesn't mean anything. It's not a special character or special keyword, right? So number is equal to random, this random number here, right? And it's going to return number back out. That's all I'm getting. I'm number. Even though I'm generating random element, I'm not really generating a random element here. I'm just generating a random number from 0 to max, whatever max happens to be. Okay, and I'm calling this method over and over again so I don't have to rewrite it. That's all I'm doing. That's why I created this method in the first place. It's just a little way of me being able to generate a random number up here, right, in my random number element generator, which is inside of my algorithm, this while loop. That's why I created it. Okay, so now I'm passing in the array, and that means if I change the value of my original array and add another element, like instead of Ford, Mercedes, I got BMW in there. Let's add in my favorite Jaguar, right? Jaguar, right? And put it in there. I can do that now. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements, right? And that's good because I don't want to have a fixed length. This is a bad thing. It's bad programming if I fix it because what if I add additional members later, right? Or what if I want to make this my structure so it's more flexible, so I want to reuse it somewhere, right? Okay, let's see what that does. I'm going to just generate this. Here's my original car list, Honda, BMW, Mercedes, and I got unavailable, unavailable, unavailable. Why are these unavailable showing up? Well, I'm telling them to be unavailable, right? Because what I'm saying is, when I pick the member or the element that I want, reset its value to unavailable. I want to reset it so that way it's not available to me anymore. Okay? I could have done this by making a copy of my original array into, on another array, right? So I could say, temporary array or something like that, and then final array. So I've got my original array, 3 arrays. My original array, my temporary array, and my final array, and then I'm going to copy everything from my original array into my temporary array, and the temporary array I'm going to modify, but I'm going to hold the original in place. It's not going to change, right? And it's better for me to do that sometimes, having 3 arrays just to keep everything sane. So let's do that. So I'll modify this. By the way, I'll update to GitHub in a second. So I have right now only 2 arrays, original array and new array. You know what? New array doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to refactor that little puppy. So I'm going to go refactor, rename, right? I'm going to rename it to final array, right? So final array, lowercase f. So I'm going to press OK and apply. Okay, so it's final array. That's what I want. This is my final array. And I want another one that I don't have yet. I'm going to create another string array. And this is where I'm getting funky now, so watch me. Here's my string array. All right, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, temporary or whatever you want to call it, like temp array. Here's my temp array, and this time it's equal to a string array. I'm using constructor notation. Here's my string array, but I'm going to make it of a fixed length. But it's going to, guess what? I already have a length value because I've already initialized this thing. I'm going to make this so that temp array depends on original array by calling its length value here. So I'm going to go original array dot length. So when I initialize my temp array, it's going to be the same size. I need to have the same number of elements if I'm going to do a copy, right? Okay. So this is my temporary array. Cool. Now before I get there, when I do a copy, this is what's going to happen here. This final array dot length is what I'm going through. But I don't want to mess with my original array anymore in this little algorithm. I want to leave my original array alone, man. Right? I want to have my copy and my temp array. So let's refactor this in here. And now it's going to be a little bit more difficult because I can't refactor it just in this code block. I'm just going to copy just for now. I'm just going to do a hard copy here because there's only a few places. Temp array. I'm going to change this to temp array. Actually, this can stay the same because my original array length is never going to change. But here, I'm going to change my stuff in here so that it's not original array. It's a copy from my temp array, right? Now, I haven't done my copy yet, so I can't really do this yet. It's going to just provide blanks. If I run this thing the way it is right now, the way I've set it up, it'll work, right? But it'll just make a bunch of blanks. Look, blanks, because the temp array is blank. I haven't copied the original array yet, right? Here's my original car list. Here's my new car list, but I don't have a temp car list, right? How do I do that? My temp car list, to copy it, I need to use some kind of for loop again, right? In another for loop, I want to do a copy. So let's do a new for loop really quickly. And is there another type of for loop I could use? And the answer is yes. I could use a for each. We didn't do that yesterday. Let's do that. So let's say for each, and I open up. What am I doing? For each element, I'll call it element, in, generate random element. For each, I want to call it kind of, it's going to be a string type element, right? Because I don't have an element, so I have to declare it as string, right? Or, because that's what it is. String elements in my array, which is going to be called my original array, right? I can do that. I'm going to loop. Have you guys seen this structure before? Okay, for each, right? Different kind of loop. And now I'm going to say inside my for each block, I want to copy each of the elements, right, from my original array into my temp array. So I'm going to say temp array element, right, is equal to original array element. This is a copy. I'm copying from one to the other. I'm not doing the, oh wait, there's a problem, right? It's not a, that'll be okay. And now I have a problem with for each. It says cannot convert type string to int, right? And the reason for that is because I'm looping. I'm getting the element, right? I'm getting the element of each one. This is the wrong way to do it. Why? Because I'm going through, instead of using an array length, I'm getting an integer, but I really want a string. So actually, the way I did it was correct. Sorry, I made it wrong. And what I want to do is just do, this is the problem with this kind of loop. What I want to say is my temp array is equal to my index, and I want to increase my index in here. I want to kind of print out each of these things. I want to copy, right, each one one at a time. But the problem is I can't do this, right? Can't say temp array is equal to element, right? Because I have to index it somehow. So this is an interesting thing to loop through to print every item, but I can't use this for each loop to copy every item. It's better for me to use a for loop, a regular for loop to do that. And the way to do that, of course, is to do this, which is what I wanted to do. But I could use a for each loop, and I'll go int I'll call this, I can't call it index anymore because I'm using index. I'll say elements for int element, where element is less than the length of the original array, right? Dot length, right? And then element, I want to go to the next element, element plus plus. I'm using element so you guys understand. And now, I'm almost done, and then you guys can go. I'm going to go temporary element is equal to it, and it gives me an error. What does it say? It says I haven't initialized it, of course, so I have to initialize it to 0, right? So element, this little loop is going to copy each element of the original array to temp array, right? That's what I'm doing here. So if that's true, right, my original array stays intact. I haven't touched it, but only my temp array gets changed. Okay, let's check that out, and let's see what my output is. If I've done things correctly, here's my original list, and here's my Mercedes Jeep Honda, and in behind the scenes, I have my temporary array that's getting the unavailable piece that I don't see, my user never sees, right? It's only the original list and the Mercedes Jeep Honda, or the final list, the new list, that gets seen. And if I just run that again, I'm always going to get unique members every single time I do that because I'm using this sequence of this array manipulation. I'm going to put this up on this change on GitHub so you can see it. Updated array manipulation algorithm. Okay, and again, you can use this thing as a basis for your own code. Any questions? Good luck with your assignment 2. If you need help, make a booking with me. I'm there between 12:30 and 6:30 tonight. This is the time to do it.
So, excuse me. Can I see it at 12:30 today?
Sure.
All right.
I'll be there right around 2:30. Just meet me at the front doors, or if you knock on the door and there'll be a receptionist, ask for me.
Okay.
She'll know where I am. I'll be there approximately 12:30.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Oh yeah, I should probably